question I would like to ask. What is, in your opinion, good architecture?
I think, in my opinion, good architecture is the architecture that responds well to the program first, because there's always a program or a client for a project, to the contest, because it's always a contest for a project, but as well that brings some innovation. And that innovation can be formal, can be technological, but I believe that good architecture is always telling us or trying to do something more of what has been done before. I think this is what I would put as the three main, let's say, character of a good architecture.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. And I can see that, well, just a moment. We have some more guests joining us right now. We have Oleg Haman.
Hello.
Hello, Oleg.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello to everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Oleg is the president of Czech Association of Architects. Good evening. We have Juraj Herman. Hello, Juraj. Have you joined us?
He's here. Juraj is here, but he's.
Juraj promised me that he will join.
Yeah, he is here, but I will ask him to open the camera.
To switch on the microphone.
Juraj, switch on the microphone. Can you join us? Maybe he can't hear us.
I can phone him.
Okay, please.
Okay.
And Balázs Csapo, president of the Budapest Architects Chamber of Architects.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Nice to see you.
Juraj, are you with us? We have to wait a minute.
Yes.
Oh.
Hello.
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 So Juraj is here. Okay, fine.
Hello, Christoph.
Yeah, hello.
Do you remember me?
Sure, we were in China together.
Yes.
Okay. We don't want to know more.
Chinese friends. That's good.
Yeah.
And Christoph is here. Andreas from the first session. Andreas Vardas is here with us.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Right.
And of course, Tina and Gianluca.
Yes, and I'm still here.
Hi. Yes.
So we are all now, or we are still waiting for somebody?
No, we are.
Okay, so we can start our final session. The discussion about the future of urban living. We have had already some very inspiring ideas by Tina and by Gianluca Racana, by also UN Studio. And however, how can we sum up these presentations? There is so many ideas, so many different views, and I think what we can say for sure is that architecture can be a fantastic tool to fight for a better world, to fight for better living, and for the sustainable environment. For well-functioning cities, for well-functioning public spaces, comfortable living in houses in general, for a more friendly world and for the world which can be understandable for us. For this world, it can be a tool to fight for this better world, which unfortunately we are gradually losing overnight, because for many reasons, for illusion of progress, for maybe running for profit, and because of pandemic and different uncontrollable things. For business which is sometimes running, not looking at the cost and consequences of the actions, which rapidly can devastate our natural environment because of information chaos, a lot of information chaos. In the field of not only architecture and urban design, but in culture and art, in the values which for 100 years were considered unquestionable, but now are questioned. Well, not today, but since last decades. So sometimes we architects, but not only architects, we seem to levitate in space, hopelessly looking at levitating concepts as well, signs which are detached from the old references, we may say. So architecture, in a way, and thinking about urban space can be a chance for us to get back on Earth, to be back in the real world of senses, of rationality, and a kind of escape from virtual space and virtual life, which we experience today. Well, Peter Zumthor says that architecture is the background of passing life. I would perhaps like to add that architecture should try hard not to become an obstacle to our life and to our urban space. Maybe that's a kind of statement from my point of view. What can be the future of architecture in when we think about the cities? Is it only a gesture? Is it only a kind of iconic sign, expression of vision of architect, or is it a process or wider process? Tina, could you perhaps comment on that?
It's not only an icon, and it is not only a process. I think one of the things that we maybe can start to discuss a little bit is how we can get the rest of the world to better understand the value of architecture. And by saying that, my reflections being a part of a political system, being a part of the leadership of administration doing urban development, being a part of a political system leading our cities. I think my observation is that architects is better to talk about architecture and urban development amongst architects and urban developers. And I guess that there is a need of us to be better talking and creating a language that everybody can understand about architecture and urban development, so that the discussion and the conversation we are having will be bigger than just among us, but it will be something that is among everybody living in the world, so that they understand the value of having a beautiful space to live in, having a beautiful city to be in, where we interact and see a lot of other people that we might be friends together with. So they have, I guess, they have. We have to have this language so that we can have the conversation together and not only among us. And it might again go a little bit back to the discussion about diversity. So I don't know, but is there any one of us in this panel being a politician, or are we all architects?
I think we are all architects, aren't we?
I guess so as well.
Architects.
So
I mean, Tina, you're the exception in every sense.
yeah. So what do you say? We need to open up the conversation, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I was saying, Tina, you're the exception in this panel in many senses, unfortunately. I mean, from my point of view, I will be a bit more self-critical. And I think as architect, I mean, all architects say they want to be more relevant and the profession be more relevant and have a bigger impact. Unfortunately, I have to see that as architect, you're not really listening to what's happening around you, or what people really want. And unfortunately, this is a critique or auto-critique we have to do. And I mean, I don't know, I can see it myself when we can see it from client as well. Sometimes we call by client to the project, and I don't know, I remember last year we were called to do hotel in one city, and we went there to look at the site. And on the site there was a very nice old building there, historical. Okay, then we went to the client the next day, and the client said, okay, so we want to do a new hotel. We have to demolish what is on site. And they show me 3 or 4 other schemes by other architect working on it. And we ask, what do you suggest? And we say, honestly, we suggest you to keep the building that is there because it's nice. It's in street scale. It was not listed, but it was an historical building of over 100 years. And we told them then the architect can work on the inside and have a beautiful contemporary feel, but we will keep it. The client was quite shocked. First of all, didn't expect it from us. And second, they say, no, because your colleagues, they spoke already with a number of other architects, say, no, it would be more efficient to demolish and do it again, which I'm not sure of the economics. But as well, everyone in the street will tell you, I don't want a new building. If I already have something, I'm affected. Maybe it was there when I was a kid and it's in my memory. But I guess I just challenging ourselves, many of us, because of our training or because we really enjoy to do what we do, will think otherwise. And the same when clients call and want to do a tower, we tell them you can do a building which is shorter, but they say, we insist, no, I want to be higher than the neighbor. Or when you go on site, when a construction site starts and you ask which type of tree you will plant, we always tell you, don't worry, this we put it on the last week of the construction at the end when everything is finished, then we decide on the trees. And honestly, not many architects that bother about it. So I think I can see as well from young graduates coming to our office, our profession is nice and is self-rewarding. We like to design things because it's powerful. You do something is not there, you decide as an architect, it's your idea, and then it's built in stone. That's very powerful. But somehow there is the risk. People just fold into himself and just look at what you want to do, what you do, it's become a self-referential. I think you have to somehow, we need to look around and listen more. I think as well as a profession, with the one we feel more endangered by progress, by technology. And I still remember my university years where it was forbidden to use the computer because people need to learn to draw by hands, thousands of plan, because it was formative. It was not informative on it because it was a mechanical process which just took out time from the thinking. So I think in a way, yes, maybe our impact as designers is not what we like to do to have. But at the same time, let's say, I think we have to engage more of what first orders around us want, and as well somehow to be more aligned with the changing times, which I think as well as a profession, we're quite a traditional bunch.
That was you're right, and actually I envy you what you propose to your client to leave the old structure to leave something which was valuable historically. I had one example. I had one experience with a client who bought a piece of plaza in front of a sport hall, and he wanted to build a private museum there. And he wanted to be something very, very, very iconic. And I proposed to him to leave the plaza. You know, you buy a piece of plaza, leave it to people, and go with your museum underground. And I lost the client.
Yeah.
I lost the client. So it's it's a kind of a dangerous thing what you say to the client. You propose something, what you propose to the client actually, not the solution of his functional need. Sometimes you have to propose something which is against his will.
I think you have to comply with this need because it's the client. But the way to do it can be achieved in many ways.
Yeah, maybe.
So I think you have to be professional there to advise on the best way to do it. I mean, obviously, you don't really tell the client if he wants to build 200 apartments, no, just do 100. But then you have to do it when you decide how. I think you need to be very open-minded.
Listen, I once succeed with the client that after a long time of sketching, I told him, leave a part of the plot to the square, to the people, and the building will be more simple. And you will get square meters as you want. And we received one triangle, and the second triangle was given by the city of Prague. And they gave it together to municipality Prague, and like a new square. But it succeeded once in life, and it was a very hard work. So not all the clients are so sometimes, but he had quite a big plot behind him, behind the square. So then we make a living house with a lot of flats, and this new public square is very, very fine. And because there was a factory of chocolate, and the name of the factory was Orion, and everybody from Prague knew the place Orion. And when the client bought the plot with old factory, it was written in the contract that he cannot use the name of Orion. It's a mark of the chocolate. So we sing very a lot of with one sculpture. And then we made a sculpture from letters, 3D letters. And the sculpture was Orion. The letters were Orion. So we obey the contract, we make art, and everybody from Prague is looking, oh, it's Orion, because they know from 50 years, 70 years, it's an Orion factory for chocolate. But it was only one occasion that we persuade the client to do that. So the idea to put something below the square is good. You lost the client, but we have to try once more again with such ideas, and then maybe sometimes it will be true.
Yeah, public space is important. You know, public space maybe sometimes is more important than the private enterprise. So there must be a kind of balance between both.
But what I consider now in the COVID situation, that what is very important is your home, because I feel the home as a fortress for you, yes. And this is a unit from which you are building the city, from the homes. It doesn't matter it's a flat or it's a house, and there are now no needs in your flat and no needs, new needs in your homes, because it's not only a sleeping room. So you have to have a space, to open space external, to have it, to make some gyms. You have to have a corners for work if you are with the children. You have to feel safe if you cannot go out. And then the second situation is the working places, because now I feel that we have a bigger office than we need, because we work in the systems of home office as everybody. So these are the in fact new ideas how to design office centers, how to design the new public spaces, working places, and homes. So we have to a little bit philosophy.
Yeah, I think there are opportunities as well from the current situation. I mean, let's take the two sector more affected, the office and the retail. So I think what we see in, for example, in our office, that people quite enjoy to work from home. Once this will be over, we want them to go back to the office, but we don't want to force people. So we're thinking to somehow you have to make the workplace interesting enough to say for people to say, well, I want to be in the office rather than be at home. You have to make the office slightly different, because we'll be less people at a certain point. So we have more space to do information, to do social, to do gathering, to have other activities which make it fun just to go there, and not only raw desk, high density, but maybe there are more social space and opportunities. And the same that for retail. I mean, if you remember 20 years ago when you were doing a shopping mall, there was no discussion at all. The more you can squeeze, the better it is. Then recently, because now there's the competition of the online, developer, they speak about placemaking. They know that if they don't do something nice and interesting and pleasant, people will just not go there because they have the option to buy from home. So I think again, and more places in, let's say, retail street or retail center, now they're 50-50 shop and 50-50 something else. So I think there is the opportunity with more competition somehow. The best project will stay both in the office on the retail area because of the value offering we bring.
I am hard, if you can hear me.
Yes.
I am talking from Cyprus, which is different. You know, there's not a big city. We don't have face these kind of problems. I think this pandemic, what teaches us is not what. Okay, we're getting back to more the house is the fortress, is the house is becoming. But I think we all realize that it's bloody boring staying in the house, because I think we realize that we are social animals, and I think once these things, okay, obviously we're going to make and I think technology making the places more and more green. We realize it. I remember we had lead petrol. Now we had the hybrid. Now we're going to have the electric. We realize that we cannot destroy our planet anymore. But I think at the same time, with this pandemic, teached us that we are much more social animals. Maybe it's a South Mediterranean culture, you know. That I think all the people that, okay, we're making our, but as an office, we've been working. We closed the office only for a month. After Cyprus was very good with the pandemic. Only now, I think tonight they will the president will announce a new lockdown. But I think in terms of architecture, I think we realize the interaction of people, how important it is. We, as Luca said, that we will make the places different. Our offices will be different in aspects of the interaction, but it's still going to be interaction. But we will improve it with the green technologies and green spaces. That is going to be improvement. I think what teaches us this pandemic is that the social interaction is very, very important to us as a human beings.
Yeah, I agree. I think the excitement of working from home is gone now.
Listen, I put the question about the new layout of flats I discussed with developers during the summer. And I started to influence them that maybe the flats must be designed in a different way. And I was very surprised that they had analysis that the flats must be smaller than today because the price of work, construction work, will be higher, and they need their profits. So they will reduce the square numbers of the flat, 2 plus kitchen, 3 plus kitchen, to lower size, to not increase the price of the flat, and this will be the product for the future. So, I stopped the discussion because it was endless, and I think this new approach and this must be, let's say, architect had to persuade the developers that this is the way. And I'm not talking about the public space; it's for everybody. But to get a better quality of a living to flats, and some things of this are not so expensive because you create bigger loggias, bigger balconies, etc., and do something in the services of the house. But we are speaking together, but we are not speaking with the cities, and we are not speaking now with the politicians, and not with the developers. And our ideas are a little different than theirs. Yes, so it will be. We have to find an economical way of this, because the COVID stopped the workers which are transferring the borders. A lot of Ukrainian people are working here, and now the prices of construction works increased a lot. So it's comparing with 4 years ago, it's like a nonsense price of construction works. But this is influencing everything in the standard, and this is influencing about the size of the flats. So we have to discuss also in this way.
So constructions slowed down in Prague?
Little slowdown, and the prices are very high.
Yeah.
Because if even you have a contract, you don't have people who will do the construction work.
Most of them were Ukrainians.
Yes, and Slovaks, etc., etc. Not only. So the prices are now higher, and a lot of developers stopped to build the buildings, and they are waiting for a better time. But this is influencing the development of the cities as well.
How about in Slovakia, Juraj?
In Slovakia, I apologize. I had a technical problem. I was a little bit out. But situation in our city, Bratislava is about 500,000 city, but daily they come to the city more than 300,000 people daily from suburbs. And this is the problem, because 20 years ago, this was the trend. The people was leave the city. They want to live in the family houses. The suburbs grows without any control, because the local politicians from this village, they sell the land for the people, And this is something what we could not say is urbanization, because there are only the dormitories for, around our capital, and the people daily travel 2 hours to the city, 2 hours back. They need 2 cars because the mother must do the taxi for the children to put them in the city to the school. And maybe this is the problem in the future. Some of you, Gianluca or Tina, spoke about 15 minutes city centers where I could walk in 15 minutes to all premises, all equipment that I need, to the shops, to the schools, to the kindergartens, to the health centers, etc. And maybe this is the question for the next 20 years, to develop these suburbs, which are really actually only the dormitories for our city, to develop of them the complete structure with all the equipment, all facilities that one city needs. But it's hard to do this sometimes because there are no spaces, because they built square kilometers of family houses, maybe without any development control. This is maybe our problem also of architect and urbanist, that we are backwards to the development, what happens, and the politicians and the developers decide how will grow our city, our suburbs. And I feel it very dramatic, because some people, they want to leave these suburbs and to go back to the city, and there are no new flats. There are very few new flats is building in the city centers, or the bigger city centers, and this push the prices of the flats very high. Actually, for example, in Bratislava, there is average is 3,000 euro per square meters, but in the city center is 6,000 euros per square meters of the flat, and for the level of salaries is very high for our people. They must make a loan for 30-40 years to buy a small flat. This is maybe the problem also what Oleg mentioned, that the developers want to push the size of the flat, squeeze it, that the flat will be saleable for the people. This is the problem, actually.
Maybe there is a necessity for cooperatives to build inexpensive housing, like in Copenhagen, low budget housing.
What was the question?
Pardon me?
Did you ask a question about Copenhagen, or?
No, it was not a question. It was just a statement that maybe following an example of low budget public housing, which was done in Copenhagen, could solve some problems in Bratislava, as well as in Krakow, maybe Warsaw.
I think to listen to all your different reflections on your national challenges, I think that again, my reflection goes back to the political level, because when we discuss, we talk a lot about that the developers just develop and the politicians just do whatever, and the citizens just they don't know what they actually want. So I think that as architects, and especially also because we have architectural associations among us in this panel, I think that we really have the challenge to try to address city making and city development for our politicians. And And that is very, very hard in one way or the other. But now being the city architect, both in Copenhagen and Gladsaxe, and been traveling around the world and talked a lot with politicians from a lot of different cities, I have never ever met a politician that did not want to build good cities. I almost will say that I never met a developer even that did not want to build good buildings. So why the hell do they still keep on dreaming about cities that are not nice to live in and work in? And why does developers still keep on building buildings that we find not attractive as architects? I guess that we need to help them, that we need to share the knowledge that we have so that they know a little bit more about dreaming about political vision, and that the developers knows a little bit more about how to create something that is not only economical good, but also good for society. And they cannot ask us because they don't know what questions they should actually ask, because they do not know anything about what we are doing and what we are dealing with as architects. So we need to go into that room and invite them for that conversation and try to help them creating and get a little bit more knowledge so that they can actually start to have vision that is bigger than I just want to have a lot of square meters. When I started as city architect in Gladsaxe, this is the first city architect in this. It is a suburb to Copenhagen. And it's the first time they have a city architect. And it was actually a political request that they wanted to have somebody to help them in the administration, within the political system, to try to help them to understand what architecture also on a city level is about. And one of the first politicians said, because I was asking them a question about, do you really mean that you want to have a better city? And one of them said, yes, but you need to tell me how to do it, because I don't know anything about architecture and city development. And I thought that was a very open view for me, actually, to go into that scene and understand that they don't know anything about it. And that's why they do not ask the questions. So I think as architectural associations, as some of you are representing here, the challenge is a lot on your shoulder to start that conversation with the politicians.
If I may add, I mean, I'm sure, I guess I've seen politicians, as you said, they're well-intentioned, but as well, there are two factors in politics. First, there's the time span, and usually politicians, they have a limited time span. They want to do good, they want to be popular as well, but they want that to happen maximum in 2-3 years, because that is, for some of them, is their time perspective. And I think sometimes this, and this is not compatible with long-term policies, so even for a building site. So I think there is an issue there, which is systematic, which if you go as an architect to a politician and you say, yes, this is a solution, it will take 8 years, it's a better one, election are in 2 years, it's not saying that they're evil, but then with the back of their mind, they think, well, let's see what I can get in 2 years. So I think that that is one of the problems. The second one is that there are budget constraints, and the politicians are the one that they have to make the budget closing up. So I think there's a lot they can do or they want to do, but as well, in some region, in some states, they can only rely on the money from developers. If they want to do a new square, they need to find a developer who does a building around it to pay for it because they have no money to do that. So I think in a way, yes, it's sometimes they need to be educated, but sometimes there are problems which are complex, which you have to find. And I have to say, we work quite globally. I have to say it's very different to have this conversation in Oslo to having in Jakarta. And sometimes just the economics doesn't stack up. So I think it's a question of knowing what to do, but as well sometimes these are complex problems. Sometimes it's not such an easy solution.
It's not easy at all, not even when the city is growing. But of course, there is a lot of difference between growing cities and shrinking cities. There's a lot of a lot more complicated, you can say, if there is no taxpayers to pay the tax, so that you actually have money to build for. And totally agree with the complexity is different from place to place, and education is not enough. There is a lot of other things that we have to deal with. But I think that no matter what, we have to go into that room and start to have that conversations together with the politicians, and also try to understand the processes of different places in the field of designing something. Often when I talk with the architects, they have the architects having their own office. They have the idea that the project starts the day that they come into the scene. And they do not understand sometimes that when they're going to design a new library, they do not have any understanding of that for 10 years it was the project of the politicians fighting for that library or for the citizens to fight for it. So often when we talk about the buildings or the design that we are doing, we do not have the understanding of the process that was before, and often also about the process when the user starts to use the building. I don't know, I guess you're probably one of the office that would go back and evaluate your buildings 1 year, 5 years, 10 years after. But a lot of people do not do that at all, because we don't get any learning of the users, and in a lot of senses we don't care about them. So I think that also we need to start the conversation, but we also as architects need to be more open to understand the political process of getting a budget or getting something decided, to make a strategic paper for politician or as politician. That is also something that is a political product, you can say, and that might be both long-term and short-term for the politician himself or herself. So we need to understand that processes of the political, and we also need more to understand the processes of the users by the end of the day, so that the need can be more connected with the political decision in the beginning. That's complicated. I don't know if I was so clear in that reflection, but it's just, I agree, it's more complex than just education. It's also about money, but it is also about architects understanding the competences of politicians and users and the group around us.
Or there is also other methods how to change our urban policy, is that the architect became the politicians. We have a case in Bratislava that a very young, good architect decided to change something in our city, and he decided to fight for be a mayor of our city. And he with our support, he succeeded. And now we have a architect, good architect, the mayor of the city. And but when we will meet in 5 years, I will say you if it was a success for our city or not. If the developers change him or he changed the developers.
So his term is 5 years, right?
4 years, but in 5 years I will see if he will be re-elected again. or not? Because normally we have every 4 years new mayor, and it is not good for the development of the city. What process they could start in 4 years? They start, and a new one started the other processes and do the thing other ways, and there is no continuity nowadays.
I think would be good somehow to shift focus from the politician to the policies, because policies are there by consensus and the administration works on it regardless of the politician. And the politician, as I say, stay there for a limited time. So I think, yes, it's good to have that direct link with the politician, but as well, successful city, and I saw that in many cases, are the one which are clear policy on written paper, which is binding, and this is a sort of rule of play. Everyone has to do it. So I think that is giving much more, let's say, guarantee of quality that actually the political level decision.
And I agree totally with that. And I can see a change when I go back in the history of Copenhagen and try to understand why are we here where we are today, where a lot of things is. Sorry.
Sorry.
I can when I go back, I can see that that a lot of things changed in the beginning of around 2005, 2006, and we have a change in the mayor at that time. So it was a new Lord Mayor and a new technical environmental mayor, and they started to design strategic papers where they got very concrete goals. One of the strategic papers were that we wanted to have more city life. And we had 3 goals. People should stay outside longer, people should walk more, and we should have diversity in the design and program of urban space. And every year we had to make an urban life account that was telling the politicians how we were going on with those 3 goals. But because they were making that strategic paper, they told the administration that they had a political mandate to go and negotiate together with the developers. But because the politicians said we want people to stay outside longer, then I could go to the developer and say, how can your building help us to get more people to stay outside? And he could start to say, then I need to design a plaza as well. Yes, you do. And you also need to connect your development together with the pathway so that we can have people crossing your site so that we can get more people to walk more. So because of the political I could see that I was muted.
Yeah.
And then when it is unmuted, maybe it's because it's the bell of the church that is ringing here in Copenhagen. Yeah, I don't know if you heard everything, but please reflect.
Yeah, it's okay.
How much did you hear of what I was saying?
And we didn't hear last probably 1 minute.
Yeah, I just totally agree. Politicians have to do policy that goes on for a longer term, so that the politician, by doing the policy, give the administration a political mandate to go and negotiate with the developers and the different clients. I just agree with you from you.
And I think comes down to education again. I think we're talking about politicians, we're talking about developers. usually we say what Tina say, we all agree, but we all agree that is like the idealistic. And I think to come and make policies or to understand this kind of policies, they must have the same kind of education and the same kind of sensitivities. And I think sensitivities that come from education in the younger age. We are still in 2020, and I still don't see in the primary school a lesson called architecture. They do theologies, they can do chemistry, but they don't do architecture. So we expect people when they are 20 to understand architecture and to understand the sensitivities of architecture. And that's why I think we manage to isolate ourselves, because we are talking in our language, because I call it the language, which we all understand and we all agree, and then we face like a brick wall of when we need to go and talk to the politicians or to the developers, and they look at us like we are the idealistic. I think we need to think that in order to achieve these things, it's a long process, and the long process needs to start with an education, and to come to this to the conclusion what maybe Copenhagen is or some of the North European countries, they are in a higher level and they have a more understanding, even the politicians themselves. I remember I left London in 1997. They had the best schools of architecture probably in the world at the time. They had a lot of amazing architects, but they couldn't build in London because nobody was giving them planning permission. Nobody was trusting them to do anything. And now I think in order to come to the conclusion and to understand what we're all about, what we try to achieve as architects, we need to face the other side with the politicians or their policies. And for them they must have this kind of education to understand what we are saying.
I would say, to sum up, we need a kind of mediating person with big experience, mediating between politicians, between architects, between developers, people with knowledge of each side, people who are not architects themselves, but they know how to deal with architects and politicians. Such a person as Tina, isn't it? You are architect, actually. You are also architect. But there is nobody like this in our city, I think. Well, each city has its own problems. We have a mayor who is on the post for 20 years. And he had a chance to develop the strategy, the politics for the development because of this long term.
Yeah, but you might invite some of your politicians in different cities or on national level to Copenhagen, and then I can guide them around. Yeah. And then, we can have a conversation on that guiding tour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's many problems which are untangled, which must be solved and which are not easy to be solved. Starting from education level, ending on development level or political level. So there must be a master who can do all the weaving of these threads. How it is in Budapest? Balázs, can you say some few words about that?
Well, actually, we had a big change recently, let's say a year ago, and my former partner became chief architect in the city, and there is a new position, a chief landscape architect as well. He is also a good friend of mine. And now Budapest is going a little bit greener, and a lot of programs were launched, which are based on highly on somehow involving the public and communicate with each other. And this kind of involvement is a very tricky thing, because you don't really get any reasonable output, but still it works. So if you communicate, if we talk to people, if you can, with this simple interaction, get people a little bit closer to each other, somehow I think a slow change can start, and I hope that sooner or later we'll have a positive output from this method. Our biggest question is that Budapest is fragmented. We have this district system with more than 20 districts, and we have the main municipality. And nowadays we do have a higher state appearance in the city. And we don't have greater Budapest, so the traffic system is isolated and many other things. So our biggest problem is how can we work together in such a fragmented and isolated era. So this is our biggest questions. And I think our opportunity is that that each political party is focusing on the very same areas of development, which is the brownfield, for example, and which is the sustainable building methods. But still, you know that public investment is not as dynamic as a normal investor can achieve. So this is how it looks like in Hungary. Now we have a big boom, or we had a big boom, because VAT of the flats were reduced dramatically from more than 25% to 5%. So everyone was building flats in the city. We do not see the end of this process. We also think about how the city can renew itself. You know, if you calculate, let's say, 50 years for a building lifetime, which is not too high, then you can calculate how many houses you need to build to keep up the city at a good level, and it shows that we still have some great numbers to fulfill, to build new flats, for example. And maybe this is now how Budapest looks like. And as an architect, I think that the magic of architecture is that we don't only deal with people's needs, we also deal with people's desire, and this is not really the same. And if I say it in other words, a building can be useful or strong or proper, and can be beautiful, and this beautiful thing or aesthetic thing is very hard to make it understandable for people, because everyone would like to be creative somehow, and when we reach the creative part of our work, then everyone is very, very expert, and things that you think is obvious you face that the client thinks the other way. Absolutely, but that's how architects live. So in that point, we have talked about isolation work, and somehow I think it is a necessity in a way, because our work is very focused, and you reach a point when you need to focus on your work, but during that period you cannot lose your empathy. So you must understand the people's needs, and you also need a very good vision, because the cities are changing, but they still look very, very same. So if you look at an old city center, you might see changes. The biggest change in the city is how we use the city. When we get the motorization, city as a drive lane capacity. Before it was different. Now we want to use it as an urban space, as a living space, and these changes are dramatically short, and this is how it is very difficult to foresee. For example, in the next 10 years, how we will use the cities, because this era, what we are changing now, was all about moving, and what we are going is all about not moving, because we don't have to move to interact. So we didn't have to get together, because we are on the internet now. And if you go out in a wonderful park in the city, you will see people looking at their smartphones, because that's how everyone is interacting now. So that is the trick part, I think, in architecture, how to foresee these changes. And of course, we have to toolkit for that, because if you create buildings that can be used different ways, it is a way out, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Malas. And I would like to thank you, all of you, for joining our conversation and our discussion this evening. I think our time is running up. It was a real pleasure to meet you virtually in Krakow. Even though it would be very nice if we meet here in person and go for dinner together, we cannot do that. That's the difference. But I hope one day we'll still have a chance to do that. However, for now, I would like to thank you very much. I would like to thank you, Florin, for organization, and that's the end of our meeting, isn't it?
I want to thank you very much for your lecture today, for involving in this conference, and to invite you tomorrow for our next conference in V4. We'll be in Bratislava together with Prague, and we'll meet Juraj, we'll meet Oleg again tomorrow for a new conference, for a new debate with the chief architect of Barcelona, and will be maybe a very interesting conference. Thank you very much again, and I would like to end this conference by saying Happy Independence Day to all my Polish friends. Long life Poland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ciao.